good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the full proposal workshop for our Texas Sea Grant RFP fiscal year 2024-2026. We have 19 participants, so welcome and thank you for joining us on a Friday. The presentation is being recorded and we will have our presentation files and the recording of this webinar posted on our web page early next week. So let's get started with some introductions. The workshop is first we'll go over with our director, Dr. Pamela Plotkin. She will cover how to develop a competitive full proposal and integrate your research with the Texas Sea Grant extension model. And then my name is Mia Zielinski. I'm the research coordinator and associate director for Texas Sea Grant, and I will go over the full proposal process, the content, and the info-ready proposal system overview. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that Dr. Plotkin may begin her presentation.
Thank you, Mia. Howdy and welcome to our webinar today that has a goal of helping you develop a more competitive full proposal for our research competition. I'm delighted to say that we received some of the best pre-proposals we have ever received in the 11 years that I've been with Texas Sea Grant, and am excited to see what your full proposals look like. So many of my slides that I'm going to show you today are the same slides that I showed you during the pre-proposal webinar, but I'm going to emphasize those same things in the context of developing your full proposal. So bear with me if you've seen something and you're seeing it again. That's not a bad thing. And I will try to add to the knowledge that you already have about that particular slide and the information it contains. Okay, so as I said during the pre-proposal webinar, what does Texas Sea Grant want to fund? That is the question that we receive every other year when we are looking to support research. Well, we want to support research that aligns with our strategic plan goals. And we have a new strategic plan that starts in 2024, goes until 2027. The reason that's critically important is because we have to achieve all the goals in our strategic plan. Some of those goals are only going to be achieved with research. And so the research dollars that we spend have to go into achieving those goals, because that's what NOAA Sea Grant requires of us. And when we are evaluated annually, and we are evaluated every 4 years by an external site review committee, that's what they are looking for. They want to see that our research investments are being used according to our strategic plan goals. So all of you have already submitted pre-proposals that are aligned with our strategic plan goals. So you've already accomplished that. But think about that as you're developing your full proposals. Second bullet is we want to fund research that addresses one of our Sea Grant research priorities. Our research priorities for this RFP, like previous RFPs, came from our coastal communities who communicate their needs to our county agents, to our extension specialists, and provide ideas for research that we can support. Some of our research priorities also came from NOAA this year, and some of them address regional challenges as well as national challenges. Third bullet down is we want to support research that integrates research and extension And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in an upcoming slide to help you understand what that means and what that looks like and why that's important. We want to support outcome-oriented research that spans broad areas. But if it doesn't span broad areas, that's okay too. We want to support research that has an end user identified. Who is going to benefit from the research outcomes or your research results? And then finally, we want to support research that generates substantial long-term impacts in Texas. So those are things that we want to fund. These are things that our reviewers are going to be looking for after you submit your full proposals. And Mia's going to talk later about the review process, who the reviewers are, and what that entails. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about that yet. So I mentioned a few minutes ago that we want to support research that align with our strategic plan goals. And our plan that we have for the state of Texas aligns with the National Sea Grant Strategic Plan. That is one of our requirements. We developed this plan with input from stakeholders, using public surveys, using input from our advisory committee, and using input from Texas Sea Grant staff, as well as NOAA Sea Grant. And then, as I already mentioned, we are held accountable for achieving goals in this plan. So if you look in this plan, there are a lot of goals related to our 4 focus areas, which are healthy coastal ecosystems, resilient communities and economies, STEM literacy and workforce development, and sustainable fisheries and aquaculture. Some of those goals are going to be achieved by our extension team. We have 14 extension staff that we support here at Texas Sea Grant. And during the pre-proposal stage, we asked you to identify 1 or more of those staff members to work with on your full proposal and on your funded research project if you receive the award. So there are some extension goals in this plan, and there are research goals in this plan, and there are educational goals in this plan. And so every dollar we spend on education, on extension, and on research has to help us achieve the strategic plan goals, because that is part of our annual evaluation, and that is part of our mandate as a state Sea Grant program. So I briefly mentioned our 4 focus areas. Here's one of them, healthy coastal ecosystems. And if you look in our strategic plan, we have 2 goals under this area, and they're very broad goals. So, let's take a look at goal 4. Natural resources in Texas are sustained by applying science-driven solutions, tools, and services to support healthy coastal ecosystems. We certainly hope that your research is going to fit into 1 or more of these goals, and they may cross different focus areas. So, for example, if you proposed an oyster research project, it could fit in sustainable fisheries and aquaculture, and it could also fit under healthy coastal ecosystems. So it's okay to have research that crosses focus areas, that crosses goals, or not. It doesn't matter how many focus areas you identify as relevant to your research project or how many goals. We're not counting numbers here. The most important thing is that in your full proposal, you very explicitly tell the reviewers, this is going to contribute to healthy coastal ecosystems, goal number 4, or this is going to contribute to sustainable fisheries and aquaculture, goal number 5, and this is why. I mean, be real explicit in your full proposals and tell people what to think. Don't leave it to them to interpret anything. So here is a list of the research priorities that we have in the RFP and to which you've already responded. So I think it'll be very clear to the reviewers when you get to the full proposal review process whether you have responded to the oyster aquaculture research priority or the oyster reef harvest restoration and management priority. So everybody who was invited to the competition to submit a proposal or encouraged to submit a proposal to the full competition responded to the research priorities. And honestly, everybody who submitted a pre-proposal this time responded to one or more of our research priorities. So I think you've all got this very clearly in your pre-proposals, and will again in your full proposals make it very clear which research priority you are responding to. So I want to spend a little time on this slide. And you saw this slide last time that we met. And this is the slide that explains how we, Texas Sea Grant Program, are structured, and really how every Sea Grant program is structured and operates. And we all 34 Sea Grant programs operate similarly. So up here in this top left-hand side, you see a coastal community. And down here on the bottom right-hand side, that represents an institution of higher education. And there's a linkage between these two endpoints. And Sea Grant fits within this yellow circle here. Texas Sea Grant employs 7 county extension agents, and Texas Sea Grant employs 7 extension specialists. Our county agents are located in county offices from Beaumont down to Brownsville. They serve their counties and they serve their communities in many different ways. And then Texas Sea Grant extension specialists are also similarly located all along the coast. And we have a few in Galveston, we have a few in Corpus Christi, and they are not county based. They are actually working statewide to extend research and to develop their own extension projects and programs. And then this last box here within the circle are our university researchers that we support. And so the way this works is that we have county agents and extension specialists who are living in the coastal communities from Beaumont to Brownsville. They're interacting with the community members. They're developing very significant trust relationships with those communities. And they are known as honest brokers. And they share science and technology with those communities to help them address the needs of their coastal communities. So there is a flow of information that we receive from coastal communities to support research. And then we, as we did in this RFP, take that information from our coastal communities, from our county agents, from our extension specialists about the needs of these coastal communities. We put that into our request for proposals. And then we look to the scientific community at our institutions of higher education in Texas to address those challenges through research. And then there's a flow of information. Your research outcomes are communicated to the coastal communities. And the one common thread across this entire continuum is our communications between these two endpoints. And so it's critically important to us that your research fits into this model and that your research addresses an identified need and that you integrate our extension team into your projects. And we have found over the years that those people who fully integrate our extension agents and specialists into their research are the most successful projects that we have supported. These people have those trust relationships with those communities. They can help you find people to work with. They can help extend your reach, and they can help with partnerships, which I think is the most important aspect of it, and to help guide you, particularly if you're working in a area or addressing a subject that may be controversial, as some fisheries and aquaculture issues are. They understand what's going on in the field and what the industry, community, societal needs are. So highly recommend that you reach out to your extension agent and or specialist within the next week and co-develop that full proposal so that they are helping you develop the pieces that you may not have a lot of experience with. So if you look at now or later, page 11 in the RFP, there are 7 review criteria listed there. And the first 4 are things that academicians are used to addressing in any full proposal. What's your rationale? What's your scientific or professional merit of your research? What's the innovativeness of your research? What are your qualifications and what's your past record? Those are things that you're used to addressing all the time in grant proposals. But the last 3 pieces or the last 3 review criteria are things you may not have a lot of experience in developing. First one is user relationships. This is the degree to which users or potential users of your results have been brought into the planning of the activity, or will be brought into the execution of the activity, or will be kept apprised of progress and results. So your extension professional will help you with the user relationships. And that's why they're critically important to you for the full proposal. In addition, criteria number 6, relationship to Texas Sea Grant priorities. This is where you tell the reviewers the degree to which the proposed activity relates to a strategic plan focus area or goal from our 2024 to 2027 plan, and to the research priorities identified in the RFP. So again, your extension professional that you identified in the pre-proposal process can help you with that section of your proposal. And then finally, criterion number 7, which is programmatic justification. This is the degree to which the proposed activity will contribute as an essential or complementary unit to other projects, to reaching the objectives of the Texas Sea Grant program, or the degree to which it addresses the needs of important state, regional, or national constituencies. Again, your extension professional will be able to help you with that section. So I encourage you to reach out as soon as possible, because those criteria are essential pieces of your full proposal. And I will tell you that in previous competitions, those have been the sections that have been the weakest and the ones that we really need to better develop, because when your full proposal goes out to reviewers, they're going to be reviewed by scientists, they're going to be reviewed by extension professionals, and they're going to be reviewed by folks who work for the federal government and have knowledge of your particular subject matter that you are proposing in your research. So you want to be able to address all of the review criteria, and your extension professionals are there to partner with you in that effort. So please reach out as soon as possible. And please know that this is a critical part of the full proposal and the review process as well. So moving along, Texas Sea Grant wants to support outcome-oriented research. And I showed you the slide during the pre-proposal webinar. There are a lot of different ideas here about what we have supported when it comes to research and some of the outcomes that we like to see and have seen in the past. There is no magic number here. If you're only going to be generating one or two of these in your proposed research, that's fine. We're not judging the number of outcomes, but these are the kinds of things that we want to see and that the reviewers will be looking for. So on the left-hand side, these are things that academicians are used to, peer-reviewed and other publications. How many students are completing degree requirements? Those students who are contributing to your research project. And then some of these may be familiar to you too. You may have worked on projects where you did some outreach to PK through 12 students. And so these are pretty straightforward. But some of the other things may not be so straightforward to you. And some of these things may not be relevant at all to the research you proposed. So don't worry about them. But, for example, here's one: ecosystems and habitats protected, enhanced, or restored. That's one of the outcomes that we have to report to NOAA Sea Grant. And we do achieve that outcome through our extension programs. Sometimes we also achieve that outcome through our research programs. So let's say you've proposed a oyster restoration program, research program, or your research may lend itself to protecting, enhancing, or restoring oyster reefs. Then you may have numbers to report there at the end of your research project. These may be an outcome, or it may not. So all of these are things that could result from your research, do not have to result from your research, but these are the kinds of impacts we're looking for from your research. So think about that as you're developing your research. What are the outcomes going to be beyond number of publications and number of students trained? So last time during the pre-proposal webinar, we also talked about wanting to support research with identified end users. And this is also a place where your extension professional that you identified in your pre-proposal can help you identify end users if you need that assistance. So we're looking for maybe a local community. Maybe you're going to be helping the city of Port Aransas. We're looking for state agencies. Maybe your work is going to help Texas Parks and Wildlife develop more effective management of a fisheries. Could be the public. Maybe your research is going to help the public better understand the hazards of a red tide bloom and how that impacts them and their seafood. Maybe your end user is a non-governmental organization. Or finally, maybe your end user is an industry. And so there are a lot of different types of end users. And there are also very different end users depending on the type of research that you are proposing. And so one example of an end user for the coral reef research priorities would obviously be the Flower Garden Banks National Marine Sanctuary, because we have asked that one of our research priorities is to understand the disease outbreak at the Flower Garden Banks National Marine Sanctuary. And in addition, one of our research priorities is resistance, recovery, and resilience of the reef ecosystem at the Flower Garden Banks National Marine Sanctuary. So we've identified in those two research priorities an end user for you, but there may be other end users of those particular research projects. And what we would like to see is the end users of your research provide you letters of support. And Mia's going to talk later about letters of support, but I want to mention it now because it really is a critically important part of your proposal. the people you identify as partners, stakeholders, end users, they are the people who are going to benefit from the outcomes of your research. And so involving them in your full proposal development is not a bad idea. And their involvement can be as minimal as providing you a letter of support. And so I'm going to give you one example of a proposal we received a few years ago that did not provide a letter of support. So in the proposal, the researchers proposed some outstanding research. It was innovative, it was needed, and it was absolutely a well-written scientific proposal. They indicated that their extension, outreach, and education component was going to take place in a museum in Texas, and that the end users were going to be the public who attended that museum and saw their exhibit and learned from it. Well, they never had a letter of support from the museum that they intended to partner with. And so when the reviewers looked at that full proposal, they said, you know, this is a great proposal, but there is no indication that they've talked to the people in this museum or that the museum has agreed to showcase the results of their research. And therefore, they got a very low score when it came to several of the review criteria. And that's unfortunate because it was really a great research project. So make sure that you're not just identifying your end users, but you're getting letters of support from them, because that is something that the reviewers of your full proposal are going to be looking for. So I want to end up with this slide again. What do we want to fund? We want to fund research that's aligned with our strategic plan goals. We want to fund research that addresses one or more of our priorities. We want you to integrate research and extension and have you reach out as soon as possible to the extension individual you named in your pre-proposal and ask him or her to help you as you're thinking through and developing this full proposal. And then we want you to generate some outcomes that will benefit Texas Sea Grant, will benefit our coastal communities, and will benefit the state of Texas. We want research that has an end user identified. And then, of course, we want research that will generate substantial long-term impacts in Texas, if possible. So I'm going to end there, and I'm going to open it up for questions and be happy to answer any questions you might have now. Or if you have any questions later on, I'm going to hang around in the background until after Mia's presentation, and we'll answer any questions that you may think of between now and then. Thank you so much. And Allie, if I'm correct, they can put their questions in the chat box. Is that correct? And you can read them to me?
Yes, the chat box or the Q&A, whichever works.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
it looks like we don't have any right now.
Okay. Thanks. And please know that you can reach out to me at any time. You can contact me by email, which is my last name, plotkin@tamu.edu. And I'd be happy to work with you and share as much information as I possibly can to help you develop a competitive full proposal. And just as one parting comment, I did want to mention that while we are Texas Sea Grant at Texas A&M University, we work across the entire state of Texas. That is our mandate from NOAA Sea Grant. And so there is no priority for Texas A&M University applicants. We don't have regional priorities in how we support research. And this truly is a fair, objective, and transparent competition I leave it to our reviewers, who are people from other states not associated with our program, to evaluate your full proposals and to make the decisions. And NOAA Sea Grant watches every stage of this competition. They've approved our RFP. They've approved our pre-proposal process. They've approved our full proposal process. They will be present in the room when our technical review panel meets to decide which full proposals we should fund. And lastly, I do want to tell you there has been one change since we published the RFP. We originally stated we were going to support 4 proposals, and we would have approximately $800,000 per year. I'm delighted to tell you that we are going to have approximately $1 million per year, and we'll be able to support 5 proposals. And of course, this is contingent on the availability of funds from NOAA, but they have assured us that we will get more funding next year to support $1 million per year in research. Thank you.
And I've just gotten a message from someone that our chat is disabled, but our Q&A is working. So if you want to put your questions in there, you can also raise your hand and we can unmute you if you want to ask them live.
Yeah, this is a great question. Is there good reason to have 2 extension specialists involved? Our proposal spans 2 counties, Aransas County and Calhoun County. And it appears that there are extension specialists for both of those counties. My answer is yes. I absolutely think that you should reach out to both of them and ask them to participate in your project. And I know they would be more than willing to help you in the development of your proposal, the execution of your research project, and then in sharing the outcomes of your research project to their counties. So yes, definitely, please reach out to them. Okay, second question is, how would Sea Grant want endorsements by end users that may also be one of the project partners? Just get a letter from them. And I believe there is no limitation on the number of letters of support that are allowed in the full proposal. And so if you have project partners, I highly recommend getting letters of support from your project partners. Now, if they are a co-PI, then that would that may not be necessary, but it's not a bad idea. Okay, can Sea Grant funding be used for marine vessel expenses? Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
And I think as a point of clarity there, from a budget point of view, I know our sponsored programs office and probably most other institutional program offices, those kind of expenses would not be included under travel. They would be included under the other cost category. So keep that in mind.
So we have another question. If one of the end user is a sub-recipient, would you accept a letter of support, or would that be a letter of commitment?
Yeah, that would be a letter of commitment if they are a sub-recipient. Thank you.
And then, oh, sorry.
Thank you for asking.
Sure. Can PIs on one proposal write a letter of support for another proposal?
Absolutely.
And then our last one is, how much detail do you expect out of a supporting letter?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, I've been asked to write a lot of letters of support. And sometimes, the NSF model is just, they require 1 sentence or 2 sentences. We'd like to see more than that. We'd like to see them support your research and tell us why they support it. So you know, for example, if you have an end user and it's the city of Port Aransas and you're getting a letter from the mayor of Port Aransas, we want him to say why your research outcomes will benefit the city of Port Aransas. So we want them to be real explicit about the benefits they will derive from your research and not just say, as NSF requires, for example, I support this project. So ask for some details from the people who write you letters of support. And, you know, quite often people will say, here's a form letter that I've given to all my supporters, and you can use this letter I've written for you as my letter of support, or you can customize it. And so I always like to do a little bit of customization if I have some time, and suggest you do the same with the folks. So this way you don't have 5 letters of support that say exactly the same thing.
We have one more question. If we have a collaborator from an institution outside of Texas, could they be a subrecipient, or would they need to be included through a contract?
So I'll ask Mia to correct me if I get this wrong, but they can be a subrecipient to your project.
Yes, and so they would have their own scope of work, their own budget justification, letter of commitment, and the institution that we would be awarding a subaward to, the PI who would be receiving that new research project award, their institution would issue a subrecipient agreement contract out to that collaborating institution, and it doesn't have to be in Texas.
That's all the questions I've received,
Okay,
and looks like there's no hands raised.
Okay,
thank you, Ally, and thank you, Dr. Plotkin.
my pleasure.
And now I will move into, again, just reviewing, as we've already gone over with Dr. Plotkin's presentation of how to develop a competitive full proposal and integrate your research with that Texas Sea Grant extension model that Dr. Plotkin explained in her visual model from the communities through our extension team, or you may have other partners that might not be our Texas Sea Grant extension team. Those other partners that you listed to integrate your research and extension is perfectly acceptable. And so, as Dr. Plotkin covered, the strategic plan goals and the funding priorities that Texas Sea Grant wants to have you focus on that are established in our RFP. Now I will be going through the full proposal preparation and submission requirements, the info-ready system full proposal overview, and then the question and answer session at the end. And you can, as we've been doing, you can be writing your questions as you go, as we go along in the webinar. So again, to introduce myself, my name is Mia Zwolenski. I'm the Associate Director and Research Coordinator for the Texas Sea Grant Extension Program, Research Program. So we're going to be getting into a lot of details here. So I hope you have your glass of water. I've got my glass of water in case I inhale water and start coughing. But our full proposal process, I want to give you a high-level overview of everything right here in this slide. Full proposal eligibility, we received 28 pre-proposals. We encouraged 22 full pre-proposals to move forward into full proposal development. Our National Sea Grant competition policy guidelines require the eligibility, though, as long as an applicant submitted a pre-proposal, then that applicant is considered eligible to submit a full proposal, regardless of whether they were encouraged or not. And as Dr. Plotkin mentioned, our RFP, originally, we were looking at 800,000 per year to support 4 projects. We're looking now at $1 million per year to support 5. I want you to really, and I'm going to be repeating this throughout my presentation, reread the RFP, the sections for the full proposal element requirements, which I'll be going over, those pages 6 through 9. The full proposal is due Friday, April 14th, before 5 p.m. because the info-ready system will automatically close right at 5 o'clock. So be cognizant of that. And again, just like the pre-proposal process, you can save drafts as often as you want. You only have one opportunity to actually submit the proposal. And the system will be set up and made available, ready for you to begin working in the system on Friday, March 24th. And it will be largely very much like the pre-proposal where you're filling out your information, those first 6 elements of both the pre-proposal is the same with the full proposal, where you're documenting what your funding priority is, your focus area, the Texas Sea Grant Extension, staff partners that you will be wanting to work with to integrate research with the extension, or your other partners outside of Texas Sea Grant. All of those will be the same information type forms for you to complete, so that'll be familiar to you. And then all of the other documents for the full proposal process will simply be your documents as a file upload. So it will be straightforward and simple for you. The lead PI is responsible for the full proposal content, requirements, and submission and info ready. The lead institution is who then submits the proposal. And we want you to have consistency with your full proposal, not deviating from the scope of the project or personnel that you had included in your pre-proposal. So our award period, our omnibus award that we're funded from NOAA has an award period of February 1 to January 31. And so these research projects are 2-year grants that will begin next February and go until the end of January of 26. The budget will be $200,000 per year, including direct and indirect, with 50% required as cost share. So our prime sponsor requires our omnibus federal funds that we request from them. We're required to commit 50% of non-federal funds. And so the funds that we receive from our prime sponsor, NOAA, we federally we take those federal funds and we flow those out to our research subaward recipients, and we flow through those same requirements, terms, and conditions that are on our prime award will go to your agreement, your award. And so for your federal funds request that you're requesting $200,000 per year, you will have that cost share matching requirement at 50% of non-federal funds required per year. And so at minimum, and we want you, and proposal administrators are good at doing this, to figure out how to work the effort and the costs such that your cost share in grand total per year comes to exactly a minimum of 50% of your federal request per year. So not to have more cost share one year versus the other, it does have to be equal per year, 50% per year. We want you, of course, to gain your institutional pre-approval of your own sponsor programs budget. Gain that pre-approval before you are populating or uploading any of your budget documents into the full proposal info ready system. So I'm sure your sponsor programs office or your proposal administrator probably has at least a 3-week lead time to get your budgets routing and that sort of thing, so that 2 weeks or so before the full proposal is due and info ready, you can be starting to upload your draft documents and save your proposal as a draft. And then replace your draft document with a final document. Save that version as a draft until you're ready to submit on the 14th. So, utilize your institutional approved budget. Actually, once you have your institution's approval of your budget, then that is the time for you to enter your budget into the budget template that we will have available for you. And it is a required NOAA Sea grant. They call it a 90-4 budget. It is an Excel template. And it's a great template because it has a year 1, year 2, and total years. And that's exactly what we need in that format. So work with your proposal administrator to confirm that once you've got your system institutional budget finalized, then they would probably populate those budget figures in the template for you. I know the institutional programs office are different from institution to institution, but I know our proposal administrators typically do that for us. So just work with your proposal administrator and confirm that your amounts tie back in case there's any final budget changes or rounding, that sort of thing. And so we want to then let you know how the overall, and this is straight from the RFP, how your proposal is to be reviewed. And Dr. Plotkin went over a few of that information. I've referenced the RFP pages 8 and 9, but the merit review criteria is modeled after the National Science Foundation's gold standard of scientific review, primarily 2 criteria of intellectual merit and then your broader impacts. So the potential to advance knowledge and understanding within the field or across fields, and then the broader impacts on how you would then be gaining the potential to prepare the next cadre of scientists via education, outreach, and extension activities. And that's integrating your research results with extension, education, and outreach with either your Texas Sea Grant Extension partners or your other partners of choice. So when the full proposals are submitted, it will go through an administrative review by me as the research coordinator, and this is standard across all 34 Sea Grant programs. And so you can imagine all the research programs are trying to find reviewers. So it was very beneficial for us to receive your suggested reviewers list for those potential reviewers. We will consider those as long as they're an out-of-state reviewer and have no conflict of interest. But I will review for the completeness and conformance with the RFP instructions. If the proposal does not adhere to the instructions, it will not move forward to ad hoc review or technical review. And the ad hoc review, we send out the proposals to 2 out-of-state scholars and extension specialists, as Dr. Plotkin was talking about earlier, without conflict of interest, to evaluate the intellectual merit and the specifics of how you're going to integrate the broader impacts of extension, education, and outreach. And again, we will take into consideration the suggested reviewers list. And then after we receive the ad hoc reviews from those peer reviewers, then we will have a technical panel review team that are comprised of out-of-state subject matter experts and extension specialists without conflict of interest. And each proposal, those technical review panelists will review the ad hoc review or reviewers' reviews and comments, scores, as well as they will review it on their own. And each proposal will receive an overall score of intellectual merit and broader impacts based on the review criteria that I'll go over in a few minutes. It's on page 9 of your RFP. And the proposal will also receive a designation of fundable or not fundable, and then a written review, which will satisfy per our national Sea Grant research competition policy. We are required to have 3 written reviews of each proposal. And so the RFP, page 9, the review criteria that Dr. Plotkin touched on, the rationale, how the proposed activity addresses the issue, problem, opportunity, and development, use, or management of coastal or marine resources, the scientific professional merit, innovativeness, qualifications and past record of investigators, user relationships, the degrees to which end users or potential users of the results of the proposed activity have been brought into the planning of the activity, and will it be brought into the execution of the activity and be kept apprised of the progress and results. And again, that's where Dr. Plotkin mentioned that your partners, your Texas Sea Grant Extension agents or specialist partners can help you with the potential users of identifying those, as well as the letters of support from end users, not just having, as Dr. Plotkin gave the example of the mayor of Port Aransas, not that he just or she just supports your proposal, but why? Where's the benefit? Where's the user relation in that outcome and result to that end user? The review criteria continues with relationship to the Texas Sea Grant priorities, the degree to which the activity relates to the focus area goals of the strategic plan, and to the research priorities identified in this RFP that you identified in your pre-proposal, and you will identify again in your full proposal. And then programmatic justification, the degree to which that activity will contribute essential or complementary to other projects to reaching the objectives of the Texas Sea Grant program, or the degree to which it addresses the needs of important state, regional, or national constituencies. So, again, Texas Sea Grant is here to support Texas, and we want your research to reach out to support Texas. And so the peer reviewers and the technical review team will be reviewing your proposal based on these 7 review criteria. And then the final selection process, the Texas Sea Grant Director will conduct a final review of the proposals, the reviewers' comments and scores, and based on what the reviewers have recommended and based on what the reviewers have commented on and designated as whether to fund or not fund, it will be based on the reviews, the programmatic priorities, and the prior performance of Texas Sea Grant funded research projects. All of the reviews will be and comments will be provided to the lead PI. There will be no rebuttal or response process, and we will have our notice of fundings by the end of June. And so that's the review process for all the full proposals. So now just to go again with using the same slide that you've seen before, because it is important, what Texas Sea Grant wants to fund is the research aligned with our strategic plan goals, how it addresses one of the Texas Sea Grant research priorities as defined in the RFP, how the integrated research and extension projects improve the understanding, wise use, and stewardship of Texas's coastal marine resources, utilize the named Texas Sea Grant Extension partners or your other named partners of choice, reach out to them next week and start having those discussions. Texas Sea Grant wants to fund outcome-oriented research that spans the broad areas of natural, physical, social, behavioral, economic sciences, and engineering. May or may not be that specific. we do want that research proposal to have end users identified and research that would generate the substantial long-term impacts in Texas. So, we keep talking about having your research align with our strategic plan, and that is because Texas Sea Grant is evaluated by our prime sponsor, NOAA, on its research investments, the outcomes of the research investments, and the relevance of these investments to identified state needs, and reaching our strategic plan, which then will reach NOAA National Sea Grant Office's strategic plan. So it's all being consistent there. And we've already covered the focus areas for the strategic plan goals: healthy coastal ecosystems, sustainable fisheries and aquaculture is what we're looking at for the goals that are under healthy coastal ecosystems in our strategic plan. These two goals that are under the sustainable fisheries and aquaculture focus area. And with that, then those two focus areas, the research priorities that were identified in our RFP and that you selected and provided to us and identified well in your pre-proposal, we want you to be consistent with identifying those same focus areas and funding research priorities in your full proposal. So now going into the requirements of the full proposal, everyone usually is typically wondering about formats and requirements. It's a standard single space 12-point minimum font with 1-inch margins, strict adherence to page limitations that we listed in the RFP and that we'll go over here. And that includes the figures and tables and images. So you want that strict adherence to page limitations. Content must be written in the third person, informative to those working in the same or related disciplines, and understandable to a scientifically literate audience, but without too much jargon and acronyms. Spell it out. All documents will just be simply file uploads in InfoReady. So, between now, the next, at least 3 weeks before the full proposal deadline, that third week or 3 weeks before the deadline, that first week of those 3 weeks, your drafts should be getting all of your drafts and all your documents, getting those drafts finalized and that sort of thing, so that you can upload them as drafts and re-upload final versions. But every document is just a file upload. It has to be in a PDF format, with the exception of the budget template, the Sea Grant 90-4 budget Excel template. We want you to upload that Excel file as well as convert it into a PDF to put it into your budget narrative, because we want the Excel template in case once you're recommended for funding, if we need to revise a budget, then we've got your template and it's easy to work with. So this was the same requirement with our pre-proposal. The number of proposals investigators may submit no more than 2 full proposals as a PI or a co-PI, but a successful investigator will receive a maximum of 1 grant as a lead PI. So you can be a partner on another one. You can submit 2 proposals as a PI if you want to, but you will need to be aware that a PI will receive a maximum of 1 grant as lead PI. So now we'll be going into the full proposal requirements, and this is taken straight from the RFP, pages 6 through 9. So these first 6 elements are the exact same as what you filled out for the pre-proposal. So the full proposal system will have you enter your project title and investigator information, your co-PIs, just as you did in the pre-proposal. You'll select that focus area and goal, and secondary focus area and goal, or none if that's the case. You'll select your research funding priority that you identified in your pre-proposal, select that again. And if you have another priority or not, select that second one or select none. Again, list your Texas Sea Grant Extension staff partners for integrating research with outreach, extension, and education. Or if you choose to have other partners of choice, you'll be completing that same section again for who those other partners of choice would be. And you use the comments that you received from your pre-proposal, where recommendations to have better or more partners that could work with you to integrate your research with extension, and even end users. So again, then the sixth one, you'll complete your end user, identify those, and define who will be the user of your research results and those outcomes. So these six are exactly the same. Enter all that information in InfoReady, just as was done for the pre-proposal. So that's simple. So all of the other full proposal elements that I'm going to be going over, taken exactly from the RFP, will be file uploads. So your project summary, and here's where I've got, and again, taken from the RFP. So here are your page limits. So be aware of those page limits. Your project summary has a 1-page limit. Your narrative, 12-page limit. Literature cited, none. CV, 2-page limit per investigator. Budget justifications, no page limits. Letters of support, collaborators, end users, no page limit. So looking back at the top under the project summary, we want that 1-page project summary abstract to be labeled with the 3 sections of objectives, rationale, and methodology. And I'm reminding you to go to page 7 to read what's related on the content for your project summary. On your narrative, your project description, that 12-page document, again, read page 7 for the specific content. For uploading, we will have a 1 file upload that will combine both the project summary and the narrative project description into 1 PDF. So upload 1 PDF containing both the 1-page project summary and the 12-page project narrative. And I'm just having you, as you did on the pre-proposal, all of your file uploads have the first term be like narrative, and then your last name, underscore last name. Your literature cited will be the next file upload. Doesn't have a page limit, as I said. Save it as lit cited and your last name, and upload as a PDF. Everything's a PDF upload. For your CVs, for your PI, your co-PI, your other key personnel, 2-page limit per investigator. Read the specific content about the other items that are to be included or not to be included within your CV. For the CV, we want you to upload just 1 PDF document of all of your CVs, with the lead PI first, then the co-PIs and key personnel. Save that 1 PDF file as CV underscore your last name and upload. The budget, we're going to go into more detail. That is very much in detail on page 8, specific content for your budget. Separate budgets are required for both the applicant and the subrecipient. If you have a collaborator at another institution, they will be drafting their own scope of work, their own budget justification. So separate budgets for the lead applicant and any subrecipients. And for the lead applicant, who might have a subaward, then that subaward's total budget is just a one line item under other costs on the lead applicant's budget. The budget justification doesn't have a page limit. We've provided templates for you for both the budget and the budget justification. There's no template on CVs, but I know a lot of you probably use NSF version type CVs, so that's fine. But we have a budget template. We have a budget justification template. Read the specific content on page 8 for that. Separate justification for both the applicant and the subawardee, if you have one. And the budget justification will have your Sea Grant federal funds budget detailed, and then cost share detailed separately. Your institutional letters of commitment and cost share are required by both the applicant and the subaward. The institutional letter of commitment and cost share should specify the total amount of cost share that the institution is committing to. So it's not just a letter of commitment to you as the researcher performing the work, but to the institution to providing those resources that you're having as cost share on your budget. We want letters of support from collaborators. That's favorable. Letters of support from end users is very favorable and recommended. And here again, we just want you to upload one PDF of all of the letters. So you'll have your institutional letters of commitment by lead and subrecipient institutions, followed by your other letters of support from you might have other collaborators who don't have budget or letters from end users. Save that one PDF file as letters underscore with your last name. And then lastly, there is an OMB approved demographics question. This is a new federal form that has questions that all of the Sea Grant programs are required by federal rules to ask. However, the response by the PI is voluntary. So all you will do is just simply download the form, click on the link in the form, and it will take you to an online form where you can complete the demographic information related to the individuals working on your project. And all of that information is retained anonymously, and I can't say that word, but that did a pretty good job of it. But it's all anonymous and it's retained at the National Sea Grant Office. So no upload is necessary for this demographics question. So continuing with the full proposal requirements, I wanted to talk more about the budget narrative, which will include your Sea Grant 90-4 budget Excel template converted to a PDF, and then the budget justification will be in one document called budget narrative. This is found on pages 8 and 9 of the RFP. Each applicant's required to provide a Sea Grant federal budget request and a cost share matching commitment budget by year and a total project cumulative budget. And so we have the NOAA Sea Grant 90-4 multi-year budget template. It's a required form. It will be accessible in the Info Ready Full Proposal system and is also on our website. The maximum budget request again is $200,000 per year, including direct and indirect. A maximum request for the 2-year project of $400,000 and a minimum cost share of 50% of your federal budget on each budget year. So whatever you're requesting in year 1 or in 2, whether or not it reaches 200,000, 50% at minimum exactly needs to be per year on each budget. So with the Sea Grant federal budget and cost share budget and a total project cumulative budget need, the template that's provided here is, take your sponsored programs office final version of your budget. And once it's final, your proposal administrator can populate the budget categories here for year one, your Fed funds, year one, your matching funds. It's all there in the columns right there. It's easily identified. Year two, your Sea Grant federal funds budget request, your year two matching funds, and those totals will flow over to this total page. And so when providing the budget information in your budget narrative, when you convert this Excel file into a budget file for the budget narrative, our sponsor requires that we display a year at a time and then the total year. So you'll have the first year showing up on one page, year two on the second page, your total year on the third page, followed by your budget justification. And just for grins, here's the live version here. So it's very detailed. If you have a subrecipient, there's that line item that you'd enter their line item total budget for your subaward if you have one, your IDC rates. So continuing with the full proposal requirements, wanted to go over a little bit more because there always are questions about cost share. So the cost share, as I said, this is a requirement by our prime sponsor. So we are requiring the same from you, a mandatory cost share of non-federal funds, a minimum of 50% of the requested funds for each year of the project, not just in total. And similar to all federal sponsors, cost share must be from a federal source, a non-federal source. So cost share, it's a legally binding commitment when you submit your proposal. You're binding legally the commitment for your institution to propose those resources on your budget to the sponsor when you submit your full proposal. So as such, cost share is required to be easily tracked for reporting purposes to the sponsor. For every dollar spent of the sponsor's funds, 50% of like dollar is the committed cost share that then is required to be reported to the sponsor. So your institution has its policies and rules and regs for tracking and reporting cost share. So for your institutions in benefit, examples of an easily trackable type of a cost share is a personnel cost effort or tuition. Other types, such as third-party cost share, while not encouraged, they are acceptable, but only if you properly evaluate that third-party cost share by providing detail in both the budget and your budget justification, the unit cost for that item, the number of units you're using, the value, the source of those funds, and a formal letter of cost share commitment is required for these third-party cost share types, which would have an authorized signature on the institutional letterhead, referencing the proposal title, the principal investigator, period of performance dates, RFP opportunity name, statement of work services, budget including the daily rate, hourly rate times the number of hours would equal that budget amount that you're committing as cost share. So you're wanting to have it be a legal binding commitment for third-party cost share for your institution to want to approve to put it on your budget. So a lot, oftentimes, the more easily trackable type of a cost share to put on a budget research project is personnel, cost, effort, and tuition. So moving on to the budget justification, there's no page limit. We want you to justify what you're requesting in the Sea Grant federal funds budget by cost category, line item in detail, utilizing the budget justification template provided. Separately, we want you to justify the cost share commitment by cost share category, line item in detail, and ensure that there's that minimum cost share of 50% of the requested Sea Grant federal funds budget is met on each cost share budget year. So for example, here are all your line items on your budget. And I have my budget justification here, if I can get it moved over. I'm not having good luck here. Let's see if I can do it this way. There we go. So our budget justification template are those same, high level budget categories that you would see on your budget, from personnel, effort, permanent equipment if it's greater than $5,000, expendable supplies, travel. As I said earlier, someone had asked the question, the boat, any boat or vehicle rental is in fuel is budgeted under other costs. You might have publication and documentation costs, other costs, tuition. And so we have a federal funds budget where you would detail from all your line items here, justify it, and then a cost share detailing that same information. I will comment too that you may include travel supplies and other costs for your Texas Sea Grant Extension partners' scope of work, for the work that they would be doing in partnering with you to integrate research with extension, outreach, and education. So you could include their travel supplies and other costs that might be needed for their work for reimbursement, but we cannot put our personnel effort on your budget. So as a note there. And then to assist on how to justify your budget in a budget justification document, the details that are required, we have on our webpage, and have available for you in InfoReady. Our prime sponsor, NOAA's Grants Management Division's Budget Narrative Guidance. That file is available on our webpage for you to look at that. I believe I have a version open. If I can put it over to the other screen. I had all my files open and ready, and then I have the display on a different screen. So this guidance gives you great detail on how to be detailed on each budget category. They really spoon feed you on what to include in your budget justification. So, and it looks like my resources are down because those pages aren't displaying. But so again, it goes through all the budget justification categories and how to justify, how detailed, the kind of order and fashion to put things in. So this is a great document resource for you to go back to as you're drafting your budget justification. And so our next, going further, once you've put together your budget, and again, it's taken directly from the RFP, the way our sponsor requires us to package our budget and our budget justification is to have a year on each page. So the Sea Grant 90-4 budget Excel template, you'll want to upload the final Excel template so that we'll have that in case we need to make revisions later on. But for the budget narrative document to compile, convert that 90-4 budget Excel template into a PDF and combine it into one budget narrative file PDF to upload. And it will display each year in the following order as noted below. And this is, again, it's how our prime sponsor requires it. So all of your full proposals, the ones that are that will be recommended for funding this summer, will be included in our next 4-year omnibus proposal that we'll be developing this summer and submitting to NOAA in early October. So the way we need you to put together your budget narrative is how we have to put together ours. In those that are recommended, that will be recommended for funding, will need to follow this same concept. I did want to note that differently from what I had written on the RFP, I had a little bit of dyslexia there, but your budget, when you convert the Excel budget template, convert Excel to PDF and display year 1 as a first page, year 2 as a second page, and then your third page would be the total years. So again, so I don't know, hide these others, do a PDF of just year 1, and then hide that and the total, do a PDF of just year 2 for your page 2, and then your total years is your page 3. And your budget justification will follow that same way. Year 1, your Fed funds request, and year 1 cost share request. Budget justification, year 2, Fed funds request and cost share request, and then budget justification, total budget request and total cost share request as the last page. Now, if you have subawardees who co-PIs at other institutions who will have a subaward agreement by your institution out to them, they will be completing these same forms, these same documents, and putting it in this same form. And the lead institution's budget narrative and budget justification would be in that first narrative document, followed by the subrecipient's budget and budget justification. So as we go into, if you do end up having a subawardee on your award, same thing that we've just been going over. They'll have a 90-4 budget Excel template. Follow those same guidelines. When you upload the Excel budget, have the file name 90-4 budget, your institution and your last name, and then for the sub-institution, have 90-4 budget, that sub-institution underscore, then that co-PI's last name. The subrecipient's total project budget must be considered within the maximum budget allowance of $200,000 per year. So if they're going to be providing their scope of work and their resources to help make your project a success, their budget and your budget added together needs to be more than $200,000 per year. And again, on the budget file, Excel file is, here's the lead budget, the lead institution's budget, and then the subaward line then would equal no more than 200 per year. The budget justification would be the same with, but one thing we do want in your project description and project narrative, you will have a section related to the scope of work that your subrecipient would be doing on your project, and have that subrecipient take that scope of work abstract 1-page document have that be the first page of their budget justification. And then utilize the budget justification template provided for their Fed funds request and their cost share request. And they would compile in the exact same manner as outlined here. Year 1, year 2, total years, and then budget year 1, budget justification year 1, year 2, and total years. Again, with budget narrative, the file saved as budget narrative underscore that institution's name underscore that co-PI last name. So other full proposal requirements that we won't go into a lot of detail on. What I've just covered is everything you need to consider. All of those elements. Did I have, I don't think I had them all numbered other than the first, oh yeah, through 15. So all 15 of those elements in your full proposal that we've gone over, those are the documents required in your full proposal. Now, once proposals are reviewed and are recommended for funding, those pending awards will be required to submit additional documents because that's what our sponsor requires. So a data management plan is not needed now, but it will be if you're recommended to be funded at the end of June. The Environmental Protection Agency's multi-questionnaire form has been abbreviated by NOAA. The National NOAA's abbreviated NEPA questionnaire is a form that needs to be completed with relevant permits if you're going to be needing any permits on the work you're going to be doing, or human protocol approvals by your institution, or we'll go into that in a minute. But that form will need to be completed. Data management plan, the NEPA questionnaire with relevant permits and approvals. We are, for the first time, having to include a current and pending support document. And then we will also have you complete a Sea Grant 90-2 project summary form that will allow us to add your project to our reporting and funding system at the National Sea Grant Office. And it will include the same objectives, rationale, and methodology that you will have put on your project summary. So that will not be too difficult to complete. And then just like any federal award, you'll have reporting requirements. You're reporting successes and results and the outcomes on your project, as Dr. Plotkin went over. The lead PI is responsible for annual reporting. Your successes are what we then report to our National Sea Grant Office and to our prime sponsor, NOAA. We report to the National Sea Grant Office each June, and then we report to our prime sponsor each November month end. And so we will be requesting you to report with your results on your projects. So going into the NEPA requirement, all NOAA funded research projects must comply with NEPA. The environmental compliance questionnaire was a lengthy form that EPA had, and NOAA abbreviated it into an environmental questionnaire that that NOAA has been using. That document needs to be completed shortly after you've been notified that your project will be recommended for funding. The questionnaire is required to include, I have mid-July, but you'll be notified at the end of June. But we would need completion of your documents certainly by mid-July. This abbreviated environmental compliance questionnaire is required to include any relevant proper permits, the status of the permits, And if you've gotten the permits already, copies are to be converted to a PDF and included with the questionnaire. So the proper permits, the status of them, the actual copies of them, the status needs to be addressed in the questionnaire. The permit copies need to be enclosed with this questionnaire. And that includes those that are required by your partner institution or subrecipient. So they don't have to necessarily fill out another questionnaire. You as lead PI are responsible for acquiring all the permits that lies with you as a funded PI. So you would coordinate with your co-PIs elsewhere to ensure that they're giving you the information you need to complete this questionnaire with, and those the status of the permits and or the copies enclosed with the questionnaire. And that questionnaire will be a PDF document upload. No, excuse me, that will be emailed separately to me this summer. So again, if a partner institution is going to be needing to get permits, it's their responsibility, and this, it should be stated in the questionnaire answer if a partner institution will be acquiring permits. So you want to have complete, concise, specific answers on your questionnaire. Failure to secure permits may result in a delay of your receipt of your funds, with a special award condition placed on your pending award, which would require satisfying before you could even start the project or could be awarded. Or if it does get awarded, you would not be able to start that part of the scope of work until that the documentation is received and I submit it to NOAA and it gets approved. So I'm giving you all this information now. While this form is not required during the full proposal stage, as you draft your proposal, consider the timing needs of putting questionnaire answers together, the completion of it, securing your permits, any other institutional compliance office requests for animal welfare and or human subject protocol approvals, if they're going to be surveys and you get exemptions and approvals of those surveys. So think about this while you're developing your draft proposal. Work on this between your April full proposal submission and the June notification, because it does take time for all of this to come together. Visit our RFP website resources for forms, guidance, and examples of types of NEPA questionnaires. This will ensure timeliness to have the form completed accurately with approvals and documents in order. Seek advisement from your institutional compliance office, certainly, because you have to be in regulation and compliance with your systems office. But one thing that is nice is that NOAA has provided the template, the questionnaire, the abbreviated environmental compliance questionnaire. They've abbreviated it from the lengthy EPA form that had to be filled out years ago. They have a step-by-step guidelines on how to answer each question, and they have provided us samples of different types of projects of a completed questionnaire. We have all of that on our webpage. So here is the questionnaire. And the first, so it's what, 8 pages, 4 pages? I can't remember, but answer every yellow box succinctly and in detail. And I've put in a caution here right now. Read the step-by-step guidance. It's a great example where you can see, okay, this question, this is really the information I need to put in this answer. Do not simply cut and paste your entire project narrative. This is more of an abstract on this question where it wants you to explain the purpose, objectives, and goals. Your objectives, rationale, methodology that you've already written in your project summary. So don't reinvent the wheel, copy and paste those specific, succinct answers there. We go to our webpage, texasseagrant.org, menu, funding, research funding, request for proposals. So okay, so here we go. So here's our webpage with all of the resources. Here was the pre-proposal presentation from last time. We'll replace that with this one when we get done early next week. Skip on down. Here are the resources for your full proposal. We have an info-ready applicant guide for, again, how to log into the system. And you've already done that. You're already an applicant, so that'll be easy for you to do. Full proposal templates. Here's that multi-year budget Excel file that we've already looked at there. The budget justification that I've already shown you is there, and Fed funds request on the first page and cost share request on the second page. Here's that new OMB demographics question I was talking about. It's not anything that you have to upload in InfoReady. You can download it from InfoReady or from our webpage. But what you'll do, so this is a Office of Management and Budget approved under Department of Commerce generic clearance form. So we are required per the federal government Executive Order 13985. They're wanting us to anonymously, for you to provide the demographic information related to individuals that are working on your project. And again, it's not a requirement for you to fill this out, but we are required to ask for you to do this. And it refers to wanting to make sure that we are serving everyone, or all of our RFPs, you know, nationwide, getting out to people who might be underserved or that may not be reached. We added more and more diversity to our Sea Grant RFP listserv to get as many diverse institutions as we can. So we hope that we've done a good job with that. But this will just show you, when you click on this optional form, it'll take you to this questionnaire on demographics. You complete it, it's anonymous. We don't even see it. It goes and stays at the national office. So, but what I wanted to really show you was the NEPA requirements. So the questionnaire, and this isn't the updated version, the one I just showed you a minute ago is, but we'll upload the most recent version here. But what I wanted to show you, if I can find where is our webpage? Oh, I bet. Let's see if I can get back to where. Here we go. Here is the step-by-step guidance. This is great. Step-by-step, every question. This is how I need to answer it. That's what I wanted to show you. And then these are the different questionnaires. If you've got a research project that's field work or strictly lab work, that might be how you might answer some of those questions, or socioeconomics example. So lots of resources here for you. And that's how that person or entity filled that out. Okay. InfoReady system, full proposal steps, just like what you've done with the pre-proposal. So you've got the landing page. Let's see if it'll take me over there. So it's not clicking over there, but there's that's interesting. So I'll have to check that. But the main landing page for InfoReady for Texas Sea Grant, let's see if this link is working. So here's InfoReady. You log in. If you're within the A&M system, you log in with your net ID. If you're not, then you log in how you did with your pre-proposal. And once you're in, then you can apply. So the request for proposals will have the RFP and all the other guidelines and templates will be available to download, review, and complete and re-upload for submitting your full proposal. The info-ready system will walk you through those required fields for completion. Complete all the required info-ready application fields, those full proposal elements, items 1 through 6, just as you did for the pre-proposal, and save it as a draft. And those items again were PI, title, PI affiliation institutions, focus areas, funding priority, Texas Sea Grant Extension partners, other partners, those same things. Go ahead and complete that. Save it as a draft. When you're ready, then you can complete each of the other elements of the full proposal that we've gone over. The project summary narrative is probably going to be one of the last things you'll upload, but your CVs, your literature cited, all of that good stuff. Upload those when you're ready. Continue just to save as a draft. Make edits anytime before the deadline. Keep saving this draft as often as needed. Just know that there's that one opportunity to submit. And when you're ready to submit, check. We'll have that same acknowledgement of full proposal submission checkbox, which then will activate the system to allow you to submit rather than save as a draft. Once you click that checkbox, you need to submit before the system automatically closes at 5 on April 14th. Once the full proposal is submitted, the full proposal submission is considered final. No further edits can be made. I'll have, what did I do here? I will have the full proposal link will be open and accessible by Friday, March 24th. And so you'll have 3 full weeks to begin uploading your documents, and your final documents probably 2 weeks before. Don't wait till the week of. Just be good to yourself in that regard. So the next slides I'm going to be showing you is same from what we just went over to the web page, but this is from the pre-proposal at this point. But just to refamiliarize with what you'll be seeing, where you log in. And again, that screen I had just showed you, either they're clicking on the blue login button with the A&M system member or other locations, and you will already have registered because you submitted a pre-proposal. So just log in with the password you'd saved. The info-ready applicant guide is still here. I'll upload all these other documents, the templates, and strategic plan will be there again. Our RFP will be there again. And so you'll just complete all of the same information that you had previously, your information, PI, co-PIs, your title, focus areas, funding priorities, second priority, if any, the extension team member as a partner or other partners of your choice, your end users. So again, this will be all the same. It's just, I just have this as this was what I showed you during the pre-proposal. So it'll be identical when I get the full proposal system ready for you. So do you have tons of questions? We're doing pretty well here and I didn't start coughing, so that was great too. I didn't inhale air down the wrong pipe. Anything about the proposal system submission and review, and that should be info-ready system, contact me. Any funding priority questions, contact Dr. Plotkin and copy me so that we can all be in together to assist you. And remember that competitive proposals will clearly address focus area goals of our strategic plan, the research priorities based on those goals of the strategic plan that our communities have told us is important for us for this RFP and that you selected in your pre-proposal, the end users that you listed in your pre-proposal, and hopefully maybe you'll have more. And those competitive proposals will clearly address how you will integrate research with extension. So we are here. I guess I'll end it here. And looks like we've got a bunch of questions.
Yes, we have a lot of questions, but I've kind of grouped them.
Oh, great.
So our first group has to do with, we have a lot of questions on personnel adjustments between the pre-proposal and the final proposal. So people are wondering, can you add more partners and or co-PIs and or project collaborators in the
Yes,
final proposal to expand the reach of the project?
yes.
Okay, awesome. And can you switch the roles of PIs and co-PIs?
Well, that might be a little tricky on the lead PI from the pre-proposal and what was submitted as that pre-proposal and was reviewed and encouraged to submit as a full proposal. I think you want to try to stay as true to what you had originally. Life does happen, and you might have your co-PI be the lead and you be the co-PI, but I would retain as much as you can, but still be successful. I don't know if Dr. Plotkin is still on or not, if she has any words of wisdom, but.
So our next group of questions are on the budget. So one is, are contract services allowed? And if so, where would that be on the budget?
Contract services. So your institution, probably like our sponsored programs office, sponsored research services, the budget template, and this is standard NOAA National Sea Grant budget template. And so they've kind of have put designated other cost categories of where one might put items. I know our sponsored programs office, when I was helping PIs develop proposals, when I was a proposal administrator a few years ago, trying to decide whether a professional service might be just that professional service provider as a consultant, or is it needed to the point where they become a subrecipient subcontract? One of the things that we always provided guidelines on is, would that professional service or consultant services, is it a plug or play type of service need? So if you're thinking you don't have an exact entity that you want to go with, it could be another entity if need be, a plug and play situation. Then it's just professional services, consultant services that you would provide here. I'm not sure that I like the word consultants. Our institution proposal administrators use professional services, I think, more, and then you describe that in your budget justification. But if that professional service provider, if only ABC company is the one that can do that kind of thing, and you wouldn't use anyone else, so it wouldn't be a plug or play, then it would be probably considered more of a contract subaward to that specific entity. If that helps clarify.
Thank you. So then we had a couple questions on cost share. So the first one is, they wanted to clarify, do subrecipients need to have the 50% cost share on their subaward, or can that cost share be supported by the lead institution?
The lead institution could take on that role if needed, so that the total project would be 50%. But you definitely want to spell that out in your budget justification. You want the reviewer to be able to tie back your numbers to all your forms and your budget justification and describe what's going on. You know, you're going to provide this rather than the institution who doesn't have the ability to, or whatever. But whatever you're justifying, you want to be able to have that, the reader understand what you're justifying. If it was a perfect world, it would be best to have that institution take on that burden of 50% cost share. But the lead could do a portion of it if they need to, but make sure that in total it's 50% at minimum, not 48.5% on 1 year and 51 whatever on year two. It's 50-50. It's a pain in the neck when you're doing the budgeting, but believe me, that's what needs to be done.
And this next one could be very similar to what you just answered. But does the 50% cost share need to be proportionally divided by the primary award and subawards according to the budget contribution of each? Or is it just a total 50% cost share per year, regardless of which institution out of the collaborating institutions it comes from?
You really want to have whatever entity is on the project, their Fed funds request needs to have 50% cost share. If you're going to have a subrecipient helping you out on yours, their federal funds request, which is going to come from you, needs to have 50% cost share that they're ponying up to match those federal funds that you'll be providing to them on their work. But there might be some institutions that don't have resources for all of the cost share, and that would burden the lead institution to take on that requirement. And if that's the case, identify that in your budget and identify that in your budget justification. Have your subrecipient identify that as well, that the cost share is being provided by the lead institution. But if in a perfect world, and in most proposals we see, the lead institution has their, is my screen still? Yeah. You know, so the lead institution has their Fed funds and they're matching. And then the sub would have their Fed funds and they're matching. So that in total, it's all 50. But if you need to adjust, you can. We don't want to drive a collaborator away because they don't have the resources. We understand resource problems and issues and needs. So whatever will be the most successful to make your project the most successful, then do what you need to do, but identify and document it everywhere.
So another question we have is, how do you define conflict of interest for the ad hoc reviews? Will it be consistent with those of NSF?
Hello, let's see. So the conflict of interest is pretty standard across all federal programs. You know, if it's someone you know, or if you've worked on, or you know, if but I'm thinking more about reviewers now at this point rather than, I mean, if your suggested reviewer list had we try to limit the conflict of interest by getting out of state reviewers. Number one, that helps a lot. But if a PI is recommending suggested reviewers, obviously they know of that person, may have worked with them in a collaborative type state. If they're I'm not able to give as specific an answer, but is just trying to, an arm's length type of conflict is what you want to kind of avoid if you can. Whatever National Science Foundation is is guiding, and that's how Dr. Plotkin has always put together her request for proposals after those gold standards.
And so then another budget question is, would a piece of equipment greater than $5,000 be allowed in the budget?
Yes, and that would be considered capital equipment. So I have at least, so here's permanent equipment and expendable supplies. I don't know if I still have my budget justification template open. I do. I type this in myself because it just makes it easier. So expendable items, anything less than 5, permanent, anything greater than 5. And that's what's exempt from ID. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. But that is what permanent equipment is, what is exempt from IDC. But yes, it's allowable.
So then we have some questions on submission. So you mentioned a current and pending support document requirement. Will you provide a form or a template for this?
Yeah, we're trying to find a decent template ourselves. It looks like the National Science Foundation put a new one out last year, and it when we get closer to that stage, hopefully I'll have a better template. But I don't know, Jenny, if you've seen the National Science Foundation's new current and pending support document. They even have a section, I think, whereas previously you could just list each current award you have, each pending award, you know, the institution, the amount, the person effort. But now NSF is such that it's each award or pending award, each proposal or pending award, current or pending, is almost one item per page, because it then has a section for you to put in a little abstract information. So apparently, you know, that's kind of telling me that there have been issues in the past where there have been too many current and pending support documents where PIs are getting funding for the same projects at the same time by sometimes the same sponsor, which is what you want to avoid for you know, in that situation, but also to ensure that you're not superhuman. However, what is your person month on every current award you have, and what is your person month's effort on each pending proposal added up? Is that more than 100%, or is it getting into 120%, you know, 150% effort? Well, we're not super people. You can't work more than 100% effort. So apparently there's issues that have come about where they're needing to police and give more description of what an abstract is about that project on each item that's listed. I don't know if we'll go with that version or not, but hopefully we can get an approved. We don't even have a recommended version from our prime sponsor for our omnibus proposal that we'll be developing this summer. And that's a new requirement that they're wanting us to have in our omnibus proposal, which is why we're requiring this from you all once you're recommended for funding. So we'll work on that this summer. But that's why you don't see anything as a reference document template yet.
So we have two questions on the InfoReady application. One is, will we be providing a direct link on our site to the InfoReady site for the full proposal? And the other is, can others have access to the application?
I think so, yes. So once I get the full proposal phase set up and I release that, I will email you all and let you know when it's been released, and I'll give you that direct link. This is a new system for me. So I'm not only having to put it together, I'm having to learn it as are you all. So I know there probably is a way where a co-PI can help upload documents or complete information the pre-proposal information. But I haven't figured out yet how to do that. I haven't looked into that yet, so I'll see what I can find out for others working on your proposal on your behalf. But you would need to know that you are responsible.
So we have one more question. So if you guys have any more questions, type them in the Q&A now. But for now, the last one is, please clarify if you want year one budget PDF to appear first, or if you want, okay.
Yes, and that's why I caught that yesterday when I was editing my template. You do want to have year one first.
Perfect. So thanks for answering all those. I don't think we have any more, and I don't see any hands.
Well, thank you, everyone. We will get I don't know how quickly we'll be able to get the recording edited and uploaded, but we'll get the presentation documents over to Allie for her to upload to our webpage, and also upload that revised NEPA form. When I clicked on it, it was still the old version. So Allie, you might do that first.
I can do that, and I can definitely have the recording up by Monday.
Okay. And email me any questions you might have after you have time to kind of think about everything that we've gone over, and anything else that might come up or you have issues with or questions with, just don't hesitate to give me a holler. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you staying on with us for so long. You may go ahead and reach out to your partners, your extension partners, Texas Sea Grant extension partners, or your other partners of choice. And good luck with your full proposal development.